Perfect. All right, so you should be able to see my screen. If not, please let me know. And then I will be able to fix that, but yes, you should be able to see my screen now. And then I'll go to slideshow. Okay, so we've had two really good sessions so far. This is the third one. I think this is, I don't want to say this is the most important one in the series because all of them are important, but I will say that this is one where you should probably take notes, take as much notes as you can, because in the whole process of getting funded, you have to submit certain documents, right? Whether you are entering a pitch competition, you're entering a grant competition, like right now, the Fox Foundation is hosting a women-only grant. So I think the deadline is February 28th. And essentially, women have to submit a business plan and a video if they would like to, okay? And so I tell entrepreneurs or side hustlers or people who are considering starting a business that there are 3 documents that you should try to have. And if you don't have these 3 documents, then have 2 of these documents. So the 3 documents are the executive summary, number 1. Number 2 is a business plan. Number 3 is a pitch deck. Now, the executive summary is literally just the first 1 or 2 pages of your business plan. So if you come across something like a competition, you find out at the very last minute, then you can put together a really great executive summary. The executive summary is literally just the summary of the most important things that you pulled out from your business plan. Okay, so if you write a business plan, you'd automatically have an executive summary. That's just a part of a business plan template. So we're going to talk about an executive summary overview, high level. We'll talk about the business plan, and Matt will come in at the end with pitching and writing a winning pitch. So we're going to talk about these 3 things. We're going to learn the critical elements that make up a compelling business plan and pitch with a deck. I put with a deck in brackets because you don't always need to send out or show an actual pitch deck. Sometimes you are just required to pitch, no deck needed. Other times they do say send your deck. Okay, you have to be mindful of that. So be prepared to do both. Secondly, articulating your business vision, mission, and unique value proposition through pitching. And then third is tailoring your business plan and deck to meet the criteria and interest of potential funders. Okay. So on the right side of the screen, you are looking at the 1-page business plan. I believe that the $100 startup they are the originators of the 1-page business plan. If you don't know where to start, if you have no idea how to write a business plan, know this. Start with the 1-page business plan and then build it out. Your business plan is a strategic document. It outlines your company's goals, strategies for achieving them, and the time frame that this will happen. So the 1-page business plan asks certain questions. It's really about self-reflection. If you just have a business idea and you have no idea how to take it from being in your mind to actually putting it on paper or on the screen, ask yourself these questions. So we're going to go through it bit by bit. But the first thing you have to remember when you're writing your plan is who in the world is reading your plan. It's kind of like a resume, right? You should not, I won't say you can't. You should not have one resume that you send out to every employer, no matter the job title, no matter the position, no matter the requirements that they ask for. Every job is specific. Every job asks for its own requirements. Every job requires that you can fulfill the duties. So the same way that you will not send one general universal resume, you do not do that with a business plan nor a pitch deck. It's very important to ask yourself who is reading your plan or your deck. Your audience, your reader may be strategic partners, financial institutions, potential investors, partners or vendors, employees, management, or you. Strategic partners could be people who, you want to create some type of alliance with. They could be people who you create referrals or they give you referrals. You can have persons who you enter into, MOUs, memorandum of understandings. Financial institutions, those would be like the lending institutions, the commercial banks. They could be like a Bahamas Development Bank, which is not a commercial bank, but it's still a financial institution. Potential investors. Are they angel investors? Are they investors who want an equity stake in your business? Are they people who are coming on even as business partners? They could also be considered investors. What about vendors? Sometimes, for example, if you are trying to strike a new relationship with a vendor or start a new relationship with a vendor, they may be like, we've never heard of you. So you may have to send information to show them that you are a real business, you are a real person, you are a real entity, and you're not just wasting their time. Next, you may need a business plan or pitch deck for your employees and your management. So the question is, why would you need either of these documents for employees or management? One, your employees have to buy into the vision of your business. That's number one. Number two, and they have to know where you intend to take the business and where they fit. That's probably the biggest one, okay? Management, particularly if you are recruiting board of directors, if you are recruiting advisors or mentors for your business, they may want to see your business on paper. Why? Because it shows that you thought it through. Because it shows, okay, this is the intention, this is the plan. You have a long-term plan. You can clearly articulate your vision. You can clearly articulate what you expect or how you expect the business to perform financially. And then, of course, there's you. Now, why did I put you on the paper as an audience? Again, remember, I said, who is reading your plan? Your business plan, your pitch deck, you could put everything. You can put your 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40-year plan on paper. Now listen closely. That does not mean that you share the business plan or pitch deck that you wrote for you with other people. That's the equivalent of like if you cook or if you bake and you have a recipe book, like a book of recipes, and these are like family secret recipes, and you're the only person who has sat down and documented those things, it's highly unlikely that if you have a business that requires these recipes, that you're going to just hand that recipe book over to someone else. So the business plan that you write in detail for yourself and outlines your vision, don't share that with anyone. I don't care if it's an investor. I don't care if these people are about to give you $1 million. I definitely don't give it to the employees. Okay? You keep that for yourself because a business plan is a document that you can keep coming back to see if you are on the right track today with the vision that you had yesterday or whatever the day was when you wrote it down. It keeps you accountable. It keeps you honest. And you'll even be able to look at it and say, you know what? I thought this is what I wanted it to be. I thought this is how I wanted the business to grow and evolve, but I'm realizing that I have a different vision now. And so you can then go back and change your business plan. Your business plan is a living document. It can be updated, okay? It's not something that you write once or you pay someone to write, and then it has to like act like this stiff book or paper or guide that you never look at, don't use, and it has no relevance to you. That's not the point of it. Okay, so let's look at the one-page business plan. First of all is, what will you sell? The next question is, who will buy it? Okay, now I said I cut it in half, so we'll go back to the right side in a moment. Who will your business idea help? Sorry, how will your business idea help people? Now the good thing, this is my wheelhouse. What are you going to charge? I'm a pricing and positioning strategist, right? So I always ask people, I'm always asking, like, how did you come up with these prices? What strategy did you, was there a strategy? Okay. How will you get paid? How else will you make money from this project? What are the multiple streams of income within this business? If you are let's say you're a fitness coach, okay? So you're a fitness coach and you have a gym. Well, how exactly are you, like, what are the streams of income? Are you going to do personal training?
Recording in progress.
Sorry, guys. Are you going to do group fitness? Are you going to run corporate sessions? What is it that you're going to do? Are you going to sell fitness plans, meal plans? Are you going to do online sessions? What are your streams of income within the business? Now, on the right side, called hustling, how will customers learn about your business? How can you encourage referrals? Listen, one of the most underrated but important things that I think we have to be mindful of in business is it's easier to sell to someone who's already bought from you, spent money with you, than it is to acquire new customers. How can you get those people coming back? How can you get those people talking about you to other people? Next, success. The project will be successful when it achieves these metrics: the number of customers, or the annual net income, or whatever other metric that you decide is important for the business to hit. Now, other metrics could be, maybe you want to reach a certain revenue, okay, or a certain net profit. Maybe you want to have a certain set of locations, a certain amount of locations in different places. Maybe you want to be in X amount of countries, whatever it is, or you want to be in X amount of stores or on X amount of store shelves. There are other metrics. And lastly, what are your specific concerns or questions relating to obstacles, challenges, or you can leave those with open-ended questions, okay? And then you have to think through a solution. So the one-page business plan is really comprehensive. And if you write out your answers, you will find that you have the skeleton of, one, your executive summary, and two, your entire business plan. You just need to fill in and go into more detail. Okay, so this is a chart that I found that I liked from Velaro, whatever it's called. Okay, so this is literally like your checkpoint, your roadmap to building a business plan. It has steps 1 to 12. Now, do not be alarmed. I know you might be like, that's 12 steps. That's a lot to write a business plan. It's okay. We're going to talk about it. So the first thing is your business idea. What is your business idea? What's the concept? Who are you selling to? What makes it unique? Let's talk about your target audience really quickly. There's something that you should put together. It's called an ideal client avatar. Ideal client avatar. So you are going to outline who your buyer persona is. This is an example. I got it off of Etsy. It's just a template, okay? The buyer persona has a name. She has an age. She has gender. Where is she located? What is her occupation? How much money does she make? Psychographics, interests, hobbies, values, beliefs, personality traits. What motivates her? What are her goals, short term and long term? What challenges does she face? What pain points does she face in her everyday life? In this instance, she's having a problem finding work life balance and finding affordable, sustainable products. What is her buying behavior? What makes her buy? In this case, she is concerned about eco-friendly items. She's concerned about influencer recommendations. What are her shopping habits? She prefers to shop online for convenience, but occasionally she goes to the farmer's market. What are her preferred brands? What are the channels and the media used to get her attention? She uses Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn. So if someone is running ads and this is the buyer persona or the ideal client avatar is essentially who you are talking to when you're marketing your business, when you're running your ads, when you are creating your graphics, when you are writing the copy for your website, you're writing the copy and the captions for your social media, for your blog post, whatever it is. So if this buyer persona is true, it makes no sense to run ads on Facebook because Sarah and people like Sarah are not on Facebook. Sarah and people like Sarah are not on TikTok. So there's no need to have a whole Facebook and TikTok account. And she prefers short form video and step-by-step tutorials. So let's talk really quickly about the business vision and mission. The vision says, where are you now? And the mission says, where are you going in the future? LinkedIn says their vision right now is to connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. Habitat for Humanity, their big vision says they want to create a world where everyone has a decent place to live. That is their long-term mission. When they do that, as far as they are concerned, then their business has been successful. So be mindful that you need to think about where your business is now and encompass that in your vision. And then think about where you're going in the future. And that is your mission overall. Now we're going to talk about the legal structure. That's also the next step. How is your business structured? Are you running a solo proprietorship business? Are you a solopreneur? Is it a business that is a partnership where two or more of you own the business? Is it a corporation? Is it incorporated? Is it a limited liability company? Now, all of these structures have legal implications. Meaning, for example, if you're a sole proprietorship, you apply for a business NIB number, you apply to physical planning if you need to, you apply to NIB, for the business number, you apply to inland revenue as well, and then you get a business license, and that's that. Unless, of course, you are in a business that requires specialized licenses, certifications, things like that. When you start to add people, that is when it becomes more complicated. So, for example, in a partnership, you should have partnership agreements. Contracts, y'all. I would like us to learn how to put things in black and white. That's just me. Because things can get sour, things can get ugly, and then all of a sudden, what was this beautiful partnership, almost like a marriage, can turn nasty, almost like a divorce, okay? When you start adding in then that you become incorporated, you now need memorandums of Matt, put it in the chat if you can, please. The articles of association. I don't remember. Sorry.
Yeah, the Constitution in a limited company is composed of the Memorandum of Association and the Articles of Association. So, for anyone familiar with more informal groups, they will have bylaws, or if you sometimes they refer to them there's bylaws and companies as well, but that would be your articles of association. So this is how things operate. This is how many people are on the board. This is how the executive is constituted. These are all the rules that have to happen for each corporate level decision to take place. So certain things will require board of directors, certain things the executive can take care of, etc.
Mhm. Thank you for that. Matthew is on that side of, of the business structure. I am not. That's not my wheelhouse. Okay, so the next step along the roadmap, let's look at market analysis. And this is from Wise Business Plans. You have to be realistic about your industry outlook. Do not put on your rose-tinted glasses and act like everything is okay and things are good if they're not in the industry that you are in or entering. So, for example, in the tourism industry, we know that while we are having more recently in the last several years, we're having peak and record-breaking tourist numbers that are coming into the country, we also have to remember that a lot of those people are cruise ship passengers, which means that they don't necessarily stay on the island of New Providence long enough to spend more than a certain amount of money. Okay. We also know that in the tourism industry, there are slow periods. September, dead. Airport, dead. Cruise port, dead. Downtown, dead. Okay. Because of the low number of persons that are coming. So do not, and we're going to get into financial projections in a few minutes, do not ever act as though your business is going to be sold out, stocked out 100% of the time, 365 days a year. Because even just the act of it raining can change your numbers. What about your product or service demand? What are the demand levels? Who is demanding it? When is it being demanded? Your competitor analysis. I've heard so many times people say that they don't have any competition. What are you talking about? That's typically my response. What are you talking about? Because one, they may not have done their homework, meaning that there are competitors they just don't know. Or two, they feel that because theirs is kind of niche enough that they don't have competition. The reality is that, you know what one competitor is that many people underestimate? Is for people to do nothing. So for example, if the choice is, I'm trying to think of a unique situation. Let's say someone wants to open a street side Indian food pop-up restaurant, okay, like a food truck. And there are no Indian food trucks in New Providence. It's true. But to say that there's no competitors, what are you talking about? Because people could always go Greek. They could eat Bahamian, they could eat Italian, they can eat other Indian food that's available. There's so many other food choices. So what do you mean you don't have any competition? That doesn't make sense. Or they could just choose not to eat Indian food, period. What about industry regulations? Are there any industry regulations that would impact you? What about industry entry barriers? I am an econ and commerce educator as well, sorry. I'm an educator, and I talk to the students a lot about barriers to entry and price elasticity, meaning that are your products different enough? Is it easy to enter your industry? Is it easy to get out of your industry? Because if it's easy to enter your industry, then it's probably pretty competitive, which means that you have to be careful about your pricing, which means you probably have to price about what everyone else is pricing. Even if you want to provide a premium service, unless you make yourself really, 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 really different, you probably can't charge premium if just about everyone else in your industry is charging cheap. That's just the FYI. I don't make the rules. That's just the market. Okay. And then what are the market trends? What are the trends going on in the market? And then Who is your target market? We already spoke about it. We already spoke about what her name was. Sarah. Yes, I actually remembered it. We spoke about Sarah. She is in the target market, except the question becomes how many Sarahs are there for you to sell to? Okay, let's talk about a SWOT analysis. SWOT. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Your strengths and your weaknesses are what apply to your business internally. The opportunities and the threats are what is out there externally. So the strength might be, for example, with ArrowLink, we have about 25, close to 25 years of different types of experience, everything from financial services to information technology. What are our weaknesses? Maybe it's the fact that we have X amount of board of directors, but we have X amount of people who are actually involved in the day-to-day of the business. What are the opportunities? There aren't many accelerator programs that exist locally. So we get to take advantage of that opportunity by being one of the few people who can actually build out accelerators and run them. What are the threats? The threats may be, let me think, who might challenge us? Okay, so let's say a bigger entity comes in and they decide to form their own accelerator, but they have more backing, they have more big names, they have more partnerships. Then we can appear much smaller and maybe not the best fit if someone is looking at brand name and recognition versus track record. I hope that makes sense. Let me know in the comments. So again, following the roadmap, we are now on the organization. So we're highlighting the team. This is a slide that has come straight out of our pitch deck. This is a pitch deck that we had to use to pitch to IDB Lab, but also partners as well. So the reason why we used our names and our faces is because you want to put real people and contextualize this is a team. These are real people. These are not fictitious people. Okay. And this is our experience. And you would write all of that out in your business plan. You can make it really short in your pitch deck. Now, be mindful that if you don't have a team, I would suggest, especially if you're asking for a lot of money, I would suggest that you create a board of advisors. That's where you can go and approach people with your pitch deck, with your business plan, and say, I would really like for you to be on board with this business idea. Do you mind being one of my advisors? You can ask your mentors, you can seek people out, do your research, definitely. Don't just grab people who look good on paper, but you can't approach them, can't find them, can't reach them, and they will not help you. That is the whole point. They're supposed to be advisors. Okay, so this is an example of the products and services description. This is a business plan that I got from bplans.com, which is a great resource. That's bplans.com. They have so many different sample business plans. You can find just about anything there if you need an example. So it's really important that when you're outlining your products and or your services, you are very clear about what it is that you offer. So this particular corporate fitness says they provide wellness strategies and programs to businesses in the downtown Seattle area. Notice that they're very specific about who they serve and where. And then they describe what is a wellness strategy to put context to it. And then it says, these are who they work with, the company's senior management. And then this is what the company's employees get, a health risk analysis, following which each employee will be given the opportunity to meet with a health professional. And then it says that they will get an employee progress report. Okay, so they are outlining the service, everything that they will receive with this strategy or program. You have to be explicit. You cannot just say, for example, it would not be useful for corporate fitness to say they provide wellness strategies or programs to businesses in the downtown Seattle area, and they left it at that. Because depending on who is your audience, what is a wellness strategy? What is a wellness program? Why is it necessary? What do they get? And you have to be mindful too that a lot of the times the people who are reading your pitch and your business plan do not have a background in your industry. So you have to be explicit. No industry jargon, no words they can't recognize. You have to break it down. Okay. Now, moving on, a marketing strategy outlines how to reach your target audience and get them to purchase from the business. This is from the Oxford College of Marketing blog, this table. And I encourage you to do a table that's similar to this. What is the positioning strategy? Exclusive, premium. What is their pricing? Because they want to be exclusive. One of the highest in the market. What is their product? It's handcrafted in the UK, meaning handmade, and there's a limited number of availability, limited number available, which also supports that it's exclusive and it's high priced. Promoting it as highly personalized. Where do they place it? Where is it sold? Highly limited places. What does it look like physically, or what is the physical evidence? It's packaged very well. And the packaging is a product within itself, meaning again, it supports that it's exclusive, it's luxury. The people, there's a limited number of ambassadors. And then what is the process? What is the process to buy from them? It's set up for busy people, it's efficient, and it is slick. What you will see in there is price, product, promotion, place. Those are the 4 Ps, which is one of the foundations of marketing. It's called the marketing mix. So note those things down. We are going to send you these slides, but note these down because this is very important for your business. Okay, we're almost done. Next, we are looking at your funding request. Then we'll go into financial projections. Your funding request should include the amount of money you need, overall, the amount of money that you are requesting, and then your use of funds. Now, why is amount of money needed separate from amount of money requested? You may need for your business $200,000. But if you're entering a pitch competition and at most they've said that they will give you $10,000, then you're actually requesting $10,000, even though you actually need $200,000. And then, of course, you have to explain what are you using the money for? Because the investors, the funders have to know that you're making sense. Okay. Now, I have seen people who pitch and they say that they, like, let's say the max is 10K, like I said before, but they need $500,000. So as a funder, the question becomes, should I even give you $10,000 because it's a drop in the bucket based on what you actually need? So I'm giving you like 1% or 5% of the money that you need. So maybe I should give that $10,000 to someone who needs $50,000 because it could get them further than the person who needs 500,000. So be mindful of those types of things as well when you are putting in your use of funds requests. And then your financial projections. If you have historical data, meaning your business has been operating, and assuming that you have been keeping financial records, I cannot stress this enough. Keep financial records from day one, your first sale. I don't care if it was $1. I don't care if it was $10. Keep financial records from the very first sale. If you have those, great. If you don't, it's fine. You need to show 3-year projections. How much money do you expect your business to make over the next 3 years? What are your expenses over the next 3 years? What is your cash flow statement looking like? What is your income statement looking like? What is your balance sheet looking like? And then, of course, your break-even analysis. These are all things that are extremely important. I'm not going to go into the weeds of showing you what each of these financials look like, but know that your cash flow is meant to show the money that's moving in and out of your business. Your income statement is meant to show a snapshot of your business at any during a particular period of time of your revenue coming in minus your expenses. Okay. And then your balance sheet is meant to show ALE. This is what I teach my students: assets, liabilities, and equity. And then, of course, your break-even analysis. How much do you have to sell in order for your business to not just hit zero, where expenses equals revenue, but where the business is actually in the positive, in the black, and making money? Okay, so to remind you, you have to clearly articulate what it is that you sell. Your financial statements have to be realistic. One of the most common things that I've heard over the years is, in my first or second year of business, I expect to make $1 million. This is what I've heard new entrepreneurs say, not seasoned entrepreneurs, not entrepreneurs who have businesses that already exist. These are new entrepreneurs just starting businesses or have business ideas, and they say that they're going to make $1 million. That is highly unlikely. Not to say it can't happen, but those businesses would be exceptions, not the rule. And there are several reasons for that. One being that how many products or services are you selling? And you would have to probably sell either a lot if it's cheap, or you would have to sell even still quite a few if it's high priced. And if it is high priced and you are a new business, are you going to have enough sales to meet that $1 million revenue? And then, of course, remember to tailor your business plan for your audience. And do not ever, ever, ever share your full business plan that is meant for you with anybody else. Okay. So we are going to turn it over to Matthew, who is going to get into pitching.
Well, thank you very much, Shauna. Let's see if we could get my screen shared up here. Now, as fate would have it, on the Isle of Freedom, where I am currently at, freedom does come with a price, which is frequent power outages. So, give me one more second, and I think we could get pitching on the road. Let's. Hmm. All right. Just give me a positive that you can see that pitching is storytelling. Shauna, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear, we can see.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure before I took off there. Okay, so we have quite a lot of slides here. I am going to be moving a little bit fast. This is a bit of a compressed version of our 4-hour pitch workshop, but it has all the contents. It has everything that you need to do. I am also going to highlight where we would insert exercises and exercises that I highly recommend that you go through, even if it's just on your own. Um, you, of course, will get the recording, so don't feel as if you're missing anything huge if you didn't quite get something. If you have any particular questions that were unclear, hit them in the chat and I'll get to them either at a small break or at the end of Q&A. And with that, I will take us away. So the first thing that you need to understand is we fully embrace the fact that pitching is storytelling. Really, any sort of persuasion, or in fact, any reasoning is encapsulated in a story. It's the way that the human mind is built, right? And so, in embracing this, you have to ask the question: What is storytelling? Well, it's just the way that you go about conveying that story, which could be very different if you are in a film medium or at a speech or doing a stage play, etc. So the medium's different, the storytelling will be different, even though the core story may be the same, which begs the question, well, what is a story? May seem a little bit pedantic, but in particular, I want you to think about a story in this context of something that tells you why. Okay. So in this case, we're telling someone why this business exists and why they should invest. At least that's the primary purpose for the pitch in this context because we're in a funding series workshop. However, you will find that you should have multiple pitches for your business, right? In the same way that Shauna outlined that there are multiple versions of your business plan, there need to be multiple versions of the pitch. But the core pitch is going to be wrapped around the idea of we need money to do this beautiful thing. That comes with a catch, which we'll get to in a bit. But in the meantime, um, I- will give you an ancient example of a story that tells why. So it's not just about complicated things like this is our business and this is how everything works and this is who we want to help and this is why we need your money and this is why we think you're going to get a good return on it, et cetera, right? It's even back to ancient simple things of explaining even the seasons. The Greek myths would explain summer versus winter by Persephone descending down to spend 6 months with her husband Hades in the underworld. But her mother was so distraught, she would go back up and spend 6 months above, and you'll have summer and good crops, et cetera, et cetera. Like the point is that this is deeply, deeply ingrained in the human psyche. So facts aren't enough. We have to be able to appreciate and weave our own stories. Now, stories bridge the gap. What is the gap? The gap is a gap in expectation. Okay? No gap, no story. Whose expectation am I talking about? Well, it depends on what story you're telling. In this case, we're telling a story to an audience of investors. But, and here's that catch I was talking about, we are telling them a story based on another story, which is the story of the customer. Okay? If we can't tell a good, compelling story about the customer and how we help them, then we're never going to be able to tell a good story to the investor. However, you need to understand that the investor is the customer for you right now. So it gets a little bit meta. So you first need to get your story of the customer down pat, and then you can tell the meta story about how the investor is going to go from where they are to where they want to be. So let's talk about this hero's journey. And this is a graphic from StoryBrand, which we highly recommend. It's these are not the only ways that you can tell stories, but this is an effective way to do it. Okay. So it's pretty simple. A character all the way on the left is trying to get over all the way to the right to success. On the bottom, of course, there's failure, and they want to avoid that. But in between is the meat of our story. because the character doesn't have what they want yet. That's the whole point of the business. So the character has a problem and meets a guide who then gives them a plan and calls them to action, at which point there can be success or failure, right? Well, guess who the guide is? It, of course, is you, your company, your business that you are going to then pitch to the audience of the investors, right? Your job is to give an offer, a plan, um, a system, an invite to come and use this known way to get what you want and end in success. Okay. So this simple structure is going to take you through. Now you need to explain this on the two levels. You need to explain, hey, this is our customer journey, and then you need to not explain the investor journey, but have that be the story that you're telling to the investors. Okay. So if we just move along to the next slide. All right. So the audience of every story, and every story does have an audience, is the hero. Okay. You have to put them in that position. So it's not about what you want, it's about what they want. And therefore, what can you do for them? Right. The old adage in the marketing business is they tune into WIIFM. I think I got that acronym right. So it's what's in it for me, right? Everyone that you are talking to is going to be thinking that on some level, even if it's not conscious. And so we need to be able to explain that. So once again, you have to explain that how that happens for your customer, and you need to tell it in a way that your investor audience is understanding. Oh, this is what's in it for me. I'm the hero here. I want to invest in something successful. This is um, the plan that will make this thing successful, and therefore I'm going to invest. All right. So they go through the same customer journey there. So now, what is a problem? Uh, that may seem a little bit silly to ask, but you'd be surprised at how many businesses do not sit down and properly think about what it is. So they'll go out there with a vague description. They know there's an issue, but maybe they are focusing on a root cause that's not resonating with someone because that someone is experiencing a symptom, as an example, right? For instance, I get migraines. When I get a migraine, I need to get this particular headache medicine, okay, because it's the only one that works. There are particular things that cause my migraines. But when my migraine happens, I do not care about them. I only care that I am in severe pain, right? So pain is one thing that defines a problem. Attain is the thing that I want. So I want to get rid of my pain, right? Or it could be something where, for instance, in the wealth niche, right? People often want to get out of the pain of being in their whatever their situation is, which could be truly painful or just perceived to be painful, or it could just be that they want to attain more status, right? But between pain and attain, they define what the problem is for the customer. Okay. You may know that the root cause, the true problem is something else, but you never try to sell someone what they need. You sell them what they want. And to them, what the pain is what they feel, what they're experiencing, what they really complain about. And we often put this down into uh, four, a simple two by two, right? So there's the future and the now. And there's the positive and the negative. So on the negative side, we'll have frustrations in the now, and we have fears about the future, and those tend to be bigger. And then in the present, for the positive, there's wants, and then long term, there are aspirations, right? So you need to really address all four in that quadrant and put it in the context of pain and attain. Now, so then we get on to referring back to the map here. There's a character, has a problem. We understand how to frame our problem now. So, who are you? Well, you are the guide, okay? And remember, the guide is the person who gives them the plan. You are not the hero. You're not the awesome thing that everyone needs to pay attention to, etc. In the case of your customer, they are the hero. You're the guide who is helping them get what they want. In the case of the investor, they are the hero. They want to get from uh, their current state to more investment, and you are the vehicle, the guide that will allow them to do that. You are never the hero when dealing with the outside. Now, if you have an internal pitch document, that may be the case. We could talk about that later, but it's irrelevant to this particular purpose for pitching. Okay. Now, what is the plan? Um, the plan, well, let's go back a second here. The plan is very simple. You don't want to complicate things. Even if you got 39 steps to go through to get to whatever um, the end product is, the end outcome is for the customer, you don't want them to see any of that. You want them to understand, hey, it's this simple. You do this, and then you succeed. That's it. And therefore, when you present that to the investor, you want it to seem that simple as well. Now, you need to be ready for the questions to really flesh that out because people are going to be very interested in the details. But in the pitch, you don't get in there and say, well, and then we do this, and then there's this process over here, and we just bought all these nice computers, so they'll do that over there. No, 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 no. You just want the high level view. First they do this, and then that, maybe a third thing, and then success, but usually one, two, success. Okay. Um, so you show the plan, and then you call them forth. You tell them, hey, um, you have to make a decision now, and this is the way you want to get you can get what you want. You have to use calls to action, and then you need to let them know that there be consequences. If they don't act, they're gonna end up down here, failure, and you want to help them avoid that. You want to help them get success, but you have to let them know there are consequences so that they know that even their decision of inaction is a decision that they're taking, right? And you want to paint that picture. This is how it will look if you don't take action and fix your problem. And this is how it will look if you do and successfully solve your problem. You buy and take the pills. Okay. So again, what is storytelling? Storytelling is encapsulating that hero's journey, in this case, into a succinct understanding of what it is that will take them from where they are to where they want to go. In the case of your customer, they have a problem. How do you solve that? In the case of the investor, they want a return. How do they get that good return? They get it through your business, and you have to convince them this is a good plan. Okay, so it's two stories in one pitch, but following the same structure. Okay, now please understand, especially if you've never come to story before, it's not going to be great on the first draft. Don't try to make it great on the first draft. Just make a first draft and then make a second draft. I believe that last session, it could be the one before that, I kept hitting on the fact that the writing is made in the editing. Same for business plans, same for pitches. You have to get past perfectionism, get your draft down, and then work on it. Get another draft out and another draft out. Okay, so that's the understanding of pitching. That's what we're doing. We're creating a story, we're telling it in a particular way. Here's the structure to do it. Okay, now, um, so there's a famous 10 slides. Gosh, that must be 15 years old now, Ishana. Um, but in any event, we have roughly 10. It's closer to 14 things that you may want to include. Now, some of these are absolutely um, mandatory, and a couple of them, depending on what your business is and where it's at, you could maybe leave it out. But absolutely mandatory title. Okay. Gotta have a great first impression. However, you don't want it to just be pretty. You need it to give information. So, um, while these slides here are great, they do leave out in these versions um, a little bit of necessary information. So, just depending on what type of pitch you are doing, for instance, you could be presenting live, in which case it would be less important to put up contact information here because it would go by very, very quickly. And they can get that at the end, and you will give it live in the presentation anyway, and they will have it from other methods. But if this is a pitch that you email, then you should definitely have that contact information on here. Okay. So, title. Next up, all about yourself. Okay. So here, let's let's just pop back twice, explaining the problem and the opportunity. So there's a lot of variance in here, but one way to do it is to really begin by speaking to your expertise in the area, right? Or giving the overall background. You could start with a story about a particular customer avatar that Shauna spoke of earlier during the business plan section. Okay. Then you can get deeper into what the value proposition is that you bring. Now, this slide is excellent because it talks about WeWork, and WeWork is a famous um, example of what not to do, at least as a corporate entity. As a pitch, oh, they knocked it out of the park because people gave them money upon money upon money. But the business didn't make any sense and eventually utterly collapsed. But what I forgot the guy's full name, but Adam is his first name. What he did brilliantly is convince people that this was the value proposition. So you have to be able to say, hey, here's the problem that we talked about for the customer, right? And we think that this problem needs to be solved, and people want to have this problem solved. And we think that that is going to make us X, Y, and Z over the course of your investment. Now, if we look here, then you remember that we are um, taking the investor through the hero's journey, but we're doing it by telling them about the hero's journey for the customer. And here we're showing through the value proposition what the customer wants. Okay, they want to work out every day. Their frustration. Remember, we talked about fears and frustrations, wants and I've forgotten the word. Shauna, you want to help me out on that one? Aspirations. Okay. Yeah. So here's what they want. Here's what's in the way. Here's what they want. Here's what's in the way. Okay. And so this sets up, okay, here's the problem. And of course, your proposition is that you're going to solve it. And you have to then, over the next set of slides, say, this is how we're going to solve that and convincingly. So one way that you do that is you talk about what the underlying magic is. Now, there are two types of underlying magic here. Again, because we're telling two stories in the pitch. The one is for the customer and one is for the investor. The one for the customer is here's what we do to solve your problem magically. Okay? So we get you what you want around your frustration, but then without you having to spend a lot of money or spend a lot of time or spend a lot of headache driving halfway across the island just to pick something up, right? So it's like in the sales formula, you get what you want without new XYZ problem. Okay. So that's the underlying magic for the customer. The underlying magic for the investor is your secret sauce. How you get that done? Do you have a moat around the business? What makes you different business wise, not just to the customer, that's important, but to us? Why should we invest in you as opposed to your competition? Why should we think that our investment in you will be safe because other people will copy your idea and come and do it better? Okay. So, two types of underlying magic because two stories being told. Okay. So, here we have um, this is basically the underlying magic from the customer's point of view. So, Lyft does background checks, provide valid credit cards, phone number, etc. But that's a little bit speaking towards the underlying magic for the investor as well. Okay. And then process speaks more towards what the investor would care about. Now, in this particular example, this process is speaking more towards the customers, but process could be speaking towards what your secret sauce is and what makes you better and more sustainable than the competition. All right. So now around business model, we have to bring a few things in. Now, the beautiful thing is that if you do your first draft of your business plan, the pitch is just retelling that story in a lot of cases. There are differences, but a lot of this you will just take from the exercise of sitting down and making sure that your business plan is down pat. Okay. So, one example here LinkedIn, this is very early days, talking about high revenue and high margins, great revenue potential for in leads, opportunities, and network plus. The law of large numbers ensures high revenue. So they're saying that because they think that they can get a lot of people, or at this point probably did already have a lot of people, um, everyone who joins that network gets more out of it by making more people join it, right? So these big tech companies were using the network effect to their advantage. The network effect is basically if I have a telephone, it's not what's worth much to me. But if you have a telephone and I have a telephone, no, now it's a lot more worth. And then if we get our friends to have telephones, well, now it's even worth even more. So that network effect makes the whole thing way more valuable. And most of the big tech companies over the last 15 years have been built on this principle. Many of the businesses that will start up out of the Bahamas, mm, probably not as big a network effect going to be had out of that. But this is their model. So very high operating margins. They have free customer acquisition. Digital goods transactions will have zero incremental costs. So they have a bunch of costs that they have to put in, but then every transaction beyond the first one that they have to pay for everything is basically just electricity. So very small costs for 1,000 people versus one, 100,000 versus 1,000, etc. Right, and then the execution difficulty decreases as LinkedIn grows. Again, we spoke about the network effect. The hardest part was building that large, high quality user base. Now, that is their business model. That's going to be very different, again, to a model of someone who wants to do this 15 years later, and definitely different to a one person startup in the Bahamas, right? Over an Uber cab, luxury service on demand, this is how they started out, right? Their model was luxury, modern, fuel efficient, customer focused, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to go into the business plan and just pull out, okay, what are the core operating principles that make this thing work? And then you may want to refer back to uh, the M model, which was a simplified version of the business model canvas that we spoke about in previous sessions. All right, competitive analysis. Now, as Shauna pointed out, even if you are in a quote unquote unique niche, you have competition because people's time, they could always do something else with it. If you're in any sort of entertainment, they could replace you with anything else. If you are doing plays, they could be watching Netflix. But the way that you analyze that landscape has to be presented in a very easy to understand format. Now, there are a few go to formats. This is one way of doing it, which is a sort of a um, orb of relatability. So these categories are closely tied together, but there are clusters of companies that do particular things, and they sort of sit in this landscape around each other, right? That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is a two by two where you show um, one axis on the bottom, one axis going up to differentiate the customers that are, sorry, the businesses that are in that industry, right? So you can compare yourself to well known brands and you can show, okay, we're like this thing, but we're different in this particular way, which further helps you identify for the investor that you are unique enough, but you're competitive in a market that is working. You don't want to be in a you don't want to have no competition in a business because there is no market there. A lot of businesses make that mistake. Here's a simplified version of that. Again, you get to make up the axes. This one is offline versus online transactions and affordable versus expensive. And then there is the pedal as well. So there are a number of ways to show where you are in relation to your competition. It's going to be down to the particulars of your business. Another way is features. So if Travis were here, he would tell you that in the tech business, features are huge, and so all the competition will be listed on the left. And of course, hopefully, you'd be all the green ticks where they have red X's, etc. Right? And then this is just another version of the two axes. So again, price, but now new entrant versus quality. All right. Now, management team, this should be pretty simple as Shauna already went over a bit in the business plan section. However, one note that I would say for the pitching is that who needs to be on this are the key players. Okay. So if you have a management team six deep, but George and Jenny could be replaced. They're great people, but you know, you you can get other people in the labor market to do what they're doing. But the really, really key people are you and Jessica. Then really you and Jessica. You know, you do have to address though what I think of as the core three things. So the role of CEO, whether you call it that or not, the role of COO, again, whether you call it that or not, but the person who puts together the systems, operations, makes the thing work, and um, the person who deals with the marketing and the revenue. Like how do we know that the person who is driving the revenue is going to make this thing work? And of course, people are very, very interested in the finance part, but that could be just any CPA, or that could be a firm that you hired, etc. As long as the core operational stuff is there. Okay, let's talk financial projections. So Sean has talked about 3 years. That is correct. That's perfect. You need to have that here, but you also need, and you don't put it in the slides, but you have to be prepared. You need to have a worst case scenario, a most likely scenario, and a best case scenario. Okay. And so when you get questions about, well, what if things go wrong? You're not on your heels and just saying, well, things are not going to go wrong. Things are going to go wrong. It's just a matter of how badly and how well you respond. But you need to show people that you are not pie in the sky and that you have thought about, well, what if things don't pan out quite the way we want to? Is this thing going to crash and burn, or is there already um, some compensation plans in place? Key performance indicators. So these can be very, very important, but it depends on the type of business. You always want to include them in some fashion, but they don't have to be like if you're running a SaaS company, software as a service, versus if you're running a fashion business, it's going to be very, very different. So just adapt to what makes sense in your business. But here is a an example, and this is just video views. Now, the question around KPIs is what is a KPI that actually matters versus what they call vanity metrics, right? And in the case of video views per day, it could go either way. It depends on what your business model is. So, as an example, people could be viewing your videos, but not viewing ads in your videos. Or people could be viewing your videos and not responding to your calls to action, right? So, what is the real metric that you want to track? And then put that in and say, okay, we think the same way you have financial projections, you have KPI projections, okay, and you put them in as appropriate for your business. Now, speaking about the MVP, we come from a world of doing this from scratch. We come from a world where the minimum viable product is something that you are pushing towards because you came up with this idea at some point, but you are just now hitting the ground. And in the next 12 weeks, you want to get something that's just working enough to get it out in the world, first draft, and start getting feedback. Is the market interested in this? What did I do wrong here? How can I improve? Or is this thing just a non-starter from the get-go? And you don't want to pour your heart and soul into something where if you just did the minimum thing and got some information back, you could have saved yourself a year of heartbreak because at the end of the day, no one wanted, what you put out there. Okay. All right. And then in this could be one slide or it could be 4 slides. Well, definitely you want to break out your use of funds. You don't want that in the same slide. But current status is was basically where are you at now? Okay, this thing has been live for a year or 3 months or whatever, right? But you're here, or maybe it's going to go live in 6 months. Whatever you have, where it's at right now. What are the accomplishments leading up to that? Okay, do you have 1,000 users? Do you have six letters of understanding, et cetera, right? And what the timeline is over the next. I would break out usually, and again, depends on the business. Usually I would break out timeline and use of funds into two separate ones besides current accomplishment. But again, very business dependent. All right. So here is accomplishments. Um, Shauna, you could either chime in or drop in the chat what this business was. I've forgotten its particular name, but it was a competition to Airbnb because of
Inclusive. Mm-hmm.
particular instances that happen there, right? Yeah. So that is a great traction slide, just showing like how many pre-launch signups, how many properties they had listed, etc. Right? And then BuzzFeed going way, way back, right? Here's where we're at. Um, Here's what's happening. Notice the 60K monthly burn. So they say very, very succinctly on a slide. Now, here's the thing. I want to make a note here. I'm going to make it again a little bit later. You want to limit the amount of text, even in bullet point form, right? This is far more appropriate if you're emailing versus making a visual presentation because people are going to stop listening to you and just start reading this, and they can read faster than you can speak it out. Um, so, 3 bullet points, maybe not that bad. This starts to be a paragraph here, right? So, just depending on context, that's something that you may want to stay away from. Okay, so getting close to wrap up here. So, remember your company's story, your customer's story, your story. There's a lot of stories involved here, right? We're crafting this as a story of the investor becoming a hero, but on the back of what the customer story is. You want to think about it though, that you have a story as well, and you want to have that ready because people are going to ask about it. And there's a company story there that is separate to you, right? And it's largely about how your company interacts with your employees and society. So if you're just starting up, it's more about how it interacts with society, which will mostly be through the customers. But if you have a vision and know what the mission is for your company, right? That's part of that story as well. So you want to have those in your back pocket, even though your customer story is the base and we're building this pitch to be the hero's journey for the investor. All right. So just an example, this is one of the youngest billionaires ever made. She has a great personal story. She then made that into a great company story. This is something to think about, right? Speaking about company stories, how how brands present themselves and how they interact with the customers, you know, you want to have these understood to yourself, but not be out there trying to push that as the basis for why someone should invest in what you're doing. All right. So at this point, we would usually give you some pitch examples. However, um, you will get those as text for you to go and look up and peruse over and compare to what we're saying that you should do. And same thing here. We're going to send you a set of tools and techniques to really keep in mind on how to do this. But this is the basics. You can make a great first draft with this and work on it from there. Um, One thing that you need to keep in mind, especially when you're live pitching, right? But you need to do this in the deck itself, especially if you're just emailing it, is you got to play offense and defense. So you are telling the story of why your plan is going to be the one that works for the investor, why your business is so great to your customers. But at the same time, you got to be playing defense, thinking, well, how are they going to try and poke holes in this? What are their concerns? Are they going to think that we're too new? Or are they going to think that this is an oversaturated market? Are they going to think that I'm asking for too much money? Are they going to think that I'm asking for too little money? Are they just going to wonder, why aren't you telling us what you're using the money for, etc.? You got to come up with all these lists of questions and you have to answer them preemptively. All right. Knowing your goals for your pitch deck is paramount. As Shauna said, you have to have multiple versions of your business plan. Who is your audience? What is the thing that you are trying to accomplish with them? Maybe it's just to set an appointment to sit in a room. Maybe it's to win a competition. Maybe it's just so you can practice and get to the next draft. You have to keep this in mind. And again, know your audience, know how to engage them. If you know your audience is skewing old, don't do things that they won't understand. Don't reference TikTok. Don't don't put tiny writing. I mean, you shouldn't do that on the whole, but there's a rule that the the size of the font should not be smaller than the oldest person in the room, or at least some fraction thereof. I can't remember the exact rule, but if you got 60-year-old people in the room, maybe you want a 60-point font. Um, yeah. So know your audience, know what they're into. A women's pitch competition that's very focused on their issues is going to be very different to just a broad-based tech pitch conference. All right. So just a couple of rules to think about. Like I said, I knocked on the text. This is a little bit of text. This is like the maximum that I would allow, really, um, in a live pitch deck. Industry jargon. If you're pitching to industry insiders, okay, right? But if it's not, don't expect bankers to understand fashion. Don't expect um, angels that necessarily know what's going on the server side in your SaaS application, right? Maybe don't take the chance. Be explicit about what you sell. Well, I think that if you follow the format that we've gone through, you won't have a problem with that. And you want to understand that you're selling them something. You better be selling them something that they could buy into. So, big picture vision is highly recommended. Again, if you're live, just don't do video. You want the focus to be on you. Your slide should be about supporting you. People should be focused on you. And then if you want to make a point, the slide helps you make that. But for the same reason that you don't have long blocks of text that people just look away from you and start reading, you don't want video. The second reason for video is I've hardly ever seen it go well, including times I've tried to use it when I thought it was going to be bulletproof. Just unless there's an absolute reason that you must, just avoid it. And then just build, learn, rebuild. Well, that's the same as practice, 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 isn't it? So just remember, you want to get the first draft, practice it, go to second draft, practice it. I know I'm repeating myself, but you want to get your first draft, practice it, get your second draft. It's all going to be in starting it, figuring out what you can make better, and then doing that. Okay. All right. So that brings me to the end of that section. Shauna, I don't know if there's anything that I left out because this is super compressed that you might have wanted to touch on.
No, I think that this was a pretty good um in-depth but also overview.
Yeah. Yeah. So do we have any questions? Let's see. I can't see chat. Well, I guess you'll let me know if you see anything in chat, Shauna.
Okay, awesome, Indira. We're glad to see that this can help you with your pitching in the future. So keep us updated. Let us know how it goes once you're able to pitch again, once you do the tweaks.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, we are at the end of another funding session. This has been fun. We have two more sessions to go. So those are going to have guest speakers. First one will be with Davinia Bain. And that one is going to be zero to financials. So
Davinia
essentially,
Bain. Who is Davinia Bain?
the official name of the session is preparing from zero to financial statements. So that's going to be really good. Davinia is the former executive director of the Access Accelerator Small Business Development Center.
I knew her. She's great.
Yes, she's also one of the co-founders of Crypto Isle, and she is one of the brains over at Omni Financial. And then the last session, we have another guest, Tino Sands. That one, we're going
Right.
to talk about navigating the application process. And Tino is not just a board of director for Link, but he has a business that is doing really well and now has a storefront in the port, the Nassau Cruise Port.
Yeah.
And he has been through the ropes and the ringer when it comes to getting funding for his business.
Yeah.
So,
And is a long-term banker.
yes, been in the financial services industry for a very long time. Very long time. So he is highly experienced. So the last two sessions are going to be really good. They should be really insightful as well for people who not only have been in it, but have been privy to the behind the scenes conversations and situations. So that is all for us. Matthew and I are a part of Arrowlink Ventures. Arrowlink, and Matthew, you can jump in at any time, but Arrowlink Ventures is really about helping small businesses when it comes to operating efficiency, when it comes to finding and earning funding. Ultimately, we want to see a Bahamas and a region that is thriving, that has a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem where funding is no longer a roadblock when it comes to businesses progressing, and where we have a space and we create a space for entrepreneurs to feel supported, to feel seen, and we are heavy, heavy on community. So, Matthew, would you like to add anything before we close out?
I think you did a wonderful job
Very cool.
explaining us.
All right, so thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you all next time in the next session. Have a good night, have a good day wherever it is that you're watching. Take
All
care.
right, guys. Stay safe and seize the day.